Dinosaur Rex, Part 3 of a 3-part series. We had traveled through the jungly rot long enough. My razor had gone dull, and I had apparently been listed as a 4-star restaurant in someone's guidebook for hungry mosquitoes. I was sick of it. We, myself, Hempstead Wallopp, and my cousin, Flavia, and our manservant, Duubadah, were on the trail of my Uncle Grenville, who was, in turn, on the trail of the Tyrannosaur Rex and the fabulous Tyrannosaur graveyard. Also sought by the nefarious Icelandic explorer, Thorbjorn Hornjorn, and his viperous wench, Sigga. We pulled to a weary halt on the perimeter of what was once a mighty metropolis, now doing a bang-up impression of the weedy patch out back of Aunt Celia's potting shed. Well, we've arrived. So we have. And not a moment too soon for my tastes. Even the rubble of civilization looks jolly and hearth-like to me at this point. What do you make of it, Duubadah? Is this that hotbed of Tyrannosaur worshippers who, even from the grave, exert their influence over the beasts? The emanations are quite strong, and, what's more, we have been preceded to this spot by others. Perhaps by the very personage we seek. Does he mean we're closing in on the good uncle? Why, Hempy, you understood him all on your own. There may be hope for you yet. Duubadah closed his eyes and made a small noise as if humming to himself. A sure sign that he had called his amazing psionic powers into play. Shortly, bad news, I'm afraid. My previous employer, Hornjorn, is here too. We'll have to be on the alert for treachery of the highest order. Duubadah, guided by his uncanny brain, led us into the ruins. And I don't mind telling you, the whole thing struck me as rummy. Very rummy indeed. The place gave me the creeps. Any associations I'd entertained between these ominous piles of rock and the words jolly and hearth-like were quickly abandoned. In fact, with the possible exception of my uncle's study, I was hard put to recall any place less jolly or more unhearth-like than the dismal edifices now surrounding us on every side. I say, Duubadah, you don't suppose there's any of them left, do you? Any of those brutal native folk? It is doubtful, sir. What we are more likely to encounter is the Tyrannosaur itself, drawn to this site by the tug of racial memory. Probably in pain, if it's near death, out of sorts, feeling a bit snappish. In fact, oh my word. We were never to learn what word Duubadah had in mind, for at that very moment. What? Oh! The monster had caught us unawares, surprising even Duubadah and his keen senses. For the Tyrannocorn, closing the distance between us was the work of a moment. Aye! Ah! Ooh! Ah! Ow! Whoa! Huh? Aside from the crippling effect the monster's charge had on the level of conversation, there was one other casualty. Oh, bother. My arm. I fear it's broken, sir. Oh, Duubadah, the pain must be extraordinary. I have blocked it mentally. However, the breakage is most inconveniently timed. This was one of my favorite arms. I'd become rather, attached to it. It will take months to grow a new one. A new one? Of course. Yes, of course. We knew of the remarkable regenerative powers of many Saurisians, naturally, but had never had the opportunity to see the phenomenon in action. We spent the next several minutes following our unidexterous friend in stunned quietude. We could hear the Tyrannocorns bellowing ahead of us. The fact that the beast hadn't chucked us down its gullet earlier indicated that it might have other things on its mind. Such as dying, which is what Tyrannocorns reputedly came to the graveyard to do. We hoped to follow it straight to the wandering relative. Our pursuit led us to a well-preserved arena, the site, as Duubadah put it, of all manner of sanguinary activities conducted for the bloodthirsty rabble. No doubt the Tyrannocorn played a significant role in these scaly proceedings. Well, I say, do you think it's wise to beard the creature in its den this way? Suppose it isn't in the mood for company. The poor thing's on its last legs, Hempy. Listen to that pathetic groaning. Chances are we'll have to build a cart and carry it to the graveyard ourselves. We entered the tunnel, hearts in our throats, and felt our way gingerly along the walls. Soon enough, we found ourselves in caverns as black as the devil's toenails. I heard a low chortle. Someone brushed against my sleeve, moving in the opposite direction. I say, Flavia, was that you? It wasn't me. I thought it was you. It was not, I fear, any of us. We've been led astray. Quickly, back to the entrance. We hot-footed it back towards daylight. From ahead of us, there issued a grinding noise like Demosthenes crunching a mouthful of rocks. The gate! Someone's lowering it on us. Someone, indeed. Listen, the Tyrannocorn. But how did it get out there? How marvelous to see you again, Mr. Wallopp. Sega and Hornyorn. What a fiendish trick, leading us on with a ruddy horn. A priceless artifact utilized, no doubt, to lure the Tyrannocorn into the arena. Instead, it lured us into the soup. We've been had, Hempy. What do we do now, Duubadah? Now, you rot, you ungrateful little rodent, leaving me, boiling alone in the hot springs, will you? Stick me with the towel deposit. You trifled with the affections of an Icelander, Mr. Wallopp, and now you'll pay the price for your folly. Will you quit that bloody honking? Funny how, even when one is facing certain doom at the hands of a woman one has scorned, one finds oneself grateful for small kindnesses. I might have thanked Singa for the favor if I hadn't wanted just then to wrap my hands tightly around her throat. The path to the Tyrannicorn graveyard has been worn quite clear. If we see your uncle, we'll give him your regards. Farewell, Hempy. So, Hempstead, this is the kind of cad you are. No doubt our trail to Africa is fairly littered with your romantic corpus delicti. Hot springs and bath towels, is it? I should have guessed. No wonder your fingers were always puckered. I see now I should have listened when Aunt Celia grouped you with the lower invertebrates. You bounder? Now, the introduction of Aunt Celia into any conversation remotely pertaining to romance was a low blow. Quickly, I composed a stinging report. Oh, ho! Flavia's was not one to leave the gauntlet lying at her feet. Immediately, she leapt into the fray. How is it? It is. Pooh. Pooh? With knobs on. Well. Shh, listen. Well. Ho. Really, Duubadah, I've had quite enough of Hornyorn and his wretched trumpet without... I believe, sir, that we are currently hearing from the genuine article. Furthermore, the source of the communication would seem to be not far down this very corridor. What he means, Hempy, what he means is that we're stuck in this ruddy tunnel with an iron gate at one end and a snarling carnivore at the other. That's what he means. That would be an honest accounting of the situation. Yes. So, we're sunk either way. Well, no use mewling in our hankies about it, eh? Our destiny, whatever its flavor, lies at the end of this corridor. I say we meet it like sports. Tally-ho! Of course, the beast did come here to die. And it's probably not the specimen we met on the road at all. Probably some wobbly, toothless old thing with lumbago. Don't you imagine, Duubadah? If it comforts you, sir. We lucked out and found some old torches stuck to the walls. The corridor twisted and branched off a number of times, but we persevered, taking our heading from the regular ruonks that met our ears from the tunnel's depths. The most disturbing aspect of the business was the occasional trembling of the walls and floor. Duubadah said of the matter, the native spirits are not happy with our various intrusions on their sacred grounds. I fear some spiritual hanky-panky may be in the offing. Hinting at the big scene where the volcano blows up and takes everyone with it, Duubadah? Something like that, yes. Duubadah's words were prophetic. We hadn't gone 10 paces when... Flavia, look out! Oh! the dust had not begun to settle before Flavia posed the very question currently niggling the self. Namely, I say, Hempstead, where's Duubadah? Flavia fell to her knees and began clawing at the debris. I was about to do the same when a raspy, busy sort of noise entered my head and buzzed around inside like a hornet on a string. Hempy, don't just stand there like a waxwork. Duubadah's buried. We have to dig him out. Not necessarily. I'm receiving a broadcast on the Duubadah channel. He says not to worry, he's tip-top. We should press on. He'll meet us further down the tunnel, where it loops around. Thank heavens. But how can we be sure the tunnel does loop around? What if he's just trying to keep our spirits up? Oh, nonsense. Not only is Duubadah infallible in matters of navigation, but he hasn't an untruthful bone in his body. Not with friends, good and true, at any rate. If he assures us of his health, then he's fit as a fiddle. If he promises to meet us, then meet us he shall. Oh, Hempstead, forgive me for arguing with you earlier. We are in this together, aren't we? To the bitter end. And we must be grateful for one another, even though you are a modern Lothario. Oh, of course. You admit it then. Certainly not. You just did. Hardly. Ho! We journeyed on for the better part of a lifetime without making any apparent progress. Melancholy swooped down and seized me like Oncelia did Uncle Grenville that time he lit up a cigar at the dinner table. We're doomed, Flavia, but I must confess, I wouldn't trade a moment of this whole blighted trip. Whichever of the many kinds of cad you've characterized me as, I still adore you, and I treasure my time in your company. Hempstead, come and look. Good Lord, how amazing. Rather a pip, isn't it? The Tyrannicorn Graveyard. And so it was, an ancient reservoir of bones and, most notably, a fortune in ivory, enough to ransom 6 kings and a dozen prime ministers and never feel the pinch. Hempy, a moment ago, did you say you adored me? I did, and I do, with all my heart. But no time for that now. We have to find the good uncle and keep him from the clutches of the Icelandic vipers. There's no telling what their ilk will do to sew up a claim as sizable as this. Not so fast, Mr. Wallopp. Gah! I'd hoped the catacombs would be sufficient to restrain you until you perished of hunger or thirst. Unfortunately, you are either more resourceful or far luckier than I imagined. A more direct solution is obviously called for. It should be easy enough to hide a few more bones among all these. Well, looks like she's got us, old thing. Well, there is one consolation. You mean not dying of ennui behind the sales counter at Harrods? Well, there is that, but what I was thinking of was, at least Duubadah's well out of it, wherever he is. What? Huh? It's Duubadah with one of those bally horns. An obvious attempt to distract me. An attempt that has failed miserably. Tell him to shut up and surrender himself. Or, oh, yes, I take your meaning. What? More horns from the opposite direction. How many of those ready things are there? It's more than just horns, Hempy. I do believe it's... Yes. Uncle Grenville. Uncle Grenville. Yes, it was the relative in the flesh, and very little else. I might add, the good uncle had evidently gone native on us and somehow gotten himself crowned king of the Tyrannosaurs in the process.
What-ho, chappies? Long time no see. Hey, what?
He charged through, motioning us to follow, while our adversaries were kept busy avoiding claw and fang.
Quickly, you two, hop aboard. We haven't a moment to lose. The spirits are angry. Plunder and thievery don't sit well with them, I'm afraid. They won't tolerate intruders for long.
Would help if the dashed ground would stay put.
The graveyard's being defiled. Now the spirits have got to bury it, and us with it if we aren't lively.
Duubadah said this was going to happen. But our fortune... No time to fill our pockets, Hempy. Looks like it's Herods and drug addictions for us after all. Blast! I was hoping to avoid that. I don't know if I can do it, Flavia. Face on Celia, I mean, empty-handed and all. Perhaps the situation is not as hopeless as the young sir perceives. If Duubadah may be allowed... Of course you may suggest a way. My excursions into the byways of these tunnels resulted in a fortuitous discovery, which, unless I'm very mistaken, may yet allow our enterprise to result in financial remuneration. Stumped you with that one, didn't he? What he means, Hempy, is that while wandering around after the cave-in, Duubadah apparently stumbled onto the treasure room. Not the treasure room per se, miss, but a passable substitute. Just ahead, sir. If you could steer us into the left fork.
Left it is. Grand to have you back, Duubadah.
Thank you, sir. To make a long story short, Duubadah was as good as his word. His keen senses led us straight to...
The hatching room? Of course. Even modern times have seen a bit of activity here, I'll wager.
Look, Hempstead, some of these eggs are actually fresh enough to eat. If one were so inclined, I mean. I rather had the heart set on gold and jewels, you know. Riches beyond imagining and all that.
Buck up, lad. Those eggs are as good as gold. Back home, they'll be worth millions if we decide to sell.
If? Why on earth wouldn't we sell them?
Tell me, nephew, did you happen to notice the gallop of these beasts? The stride is amazing.
We loaded up the buggy and made it back to the jungle without further incident. We did not see or hear from the Icelanders again. The trip back was slowed by the fragile nature of our cargo, giving Uncle Grenville ample time to recount the details of his religious conversion. The tale was a long one, involving a dream he'd had under the fever in Bangui, a revelation in the ancient city of the Tyrannicorn worshippers, and some business I didn't fully understand about rebirth amongst the bones of antiquity or something. However, a few days in the tendrils restored the uncle's true spirit, and he quickly reverted to his former self.
Out of range. Dash it. More powder next time, Duubadah.
Very good, sir. I myself was moved to the sway of passion, and somewhere along the line proposed marriage to Flavia. The silly girl accepted. So, what do you think of this idea of the uncle's? This Tyrannicorn breeding? Any substance to it? Well, the stock is sound enough, but I wonder if the good uncle has the stomach for it. Tied to the manor with Aunt Celia, weekends spent hosting the gentry, all that. For Uncle Grenville, it would be rather like setting up shop in the lower levels of Hades. I shouldn't be surprised to find his courage failing him by the time we reach Bangui. In point of fact... Oh, shut up, Hempy, and kiss me.
And so, I was thinking, Duubadah, reunited as we are, why not let the youngsters have the eggs and the ranch while you and I pursue our manly adventure elsewhere? And what form might this adventure assume, sir?
Oh, just any big game. Anything less formidable than Celia, don't you know? The electric allosaur, for example, or the giant rabid bat. Very good, sir. The end.